Welcome back to Sports Around the Bar, your weekly sports talk show. I'm Jake, your bartender, and I tried running through the 800 things I need to click on before we come see you as quick as I can. I'm joined, as always, here by Drew on center stool, and today, man, we've got some NFL news. First of the offseason, Kareem Hunt, Eric Reed, Kyler Murray. We'll be talking about all those guys, and we're also going to be talking about the AAF. What are you most excited about today?
What the Browns are thinking. But they got him on a heck of a deal. Let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about the Kareem Hunt signing. They signed him to a 1-year contract, supposedly worth $1 million.
Hold that thought. What's going on, Shannon? Good to see you, man. Yeah, $1 million, 1-year deal is what we've heard so far for contract details. Now, he is still a restricted free agent, which does mean that at the end of the year, if they do let him walk or he wants to move on and doesn't want to re-sign with them, the Cleveland Browns could theoretically get some draft picks out of him, too, if they lose him, as long as they offer him a contract. Steve says he's watching live from Daytona. Now we know why you wanted to talk about racing before. And he's going to be on the infield for the Daytona 500. Man, it's an experience.
Sounds like fun.
We're happy for you. And Matthew also says that he has no opinion on the Kareem Hunt signing. Look, I think it's a great move for Cleveland. Everyone's going to sit here and say, how are you going to go sign a guy that's coming off domestic violence and everything like that? Well, where was all this outrage when the 49ers linebacker was falsely accused for it, got cut, and then got picked up by the Washington Redskins? I mean, I get it. We have the video of Kareem Hunt. It's definitely worse. I know he did it, but let's not pretend like it's the same as Ray Rice or even Joe Mixon, where they just straight out like knocked a girl flat, just haymakered her, took her out of the game. It's not the same thing. I mean, he did kick her when she was down. It was definitely, a dick move. I don't know how else to describe it. I was looking for another word. Don't really have it. Terrible move, and it shows character issues with the guy. I'm not saying that, but you can't sit there and tell me that because of that that kick, that the guy should never work again. I don't think that's the NFL's job to regulate that. It's not their job to sit there and play crime and punishment. If you have anyone to be mad at the district attorney in Cleveland for not filing any charges.
Well, unfortunately, even though you don't like that, that is in the players' agreement that they get to make that decision. That is Roger Goodell's decision that this guy's going to play again. And really what this is almost just like a retainer fee to hold the rights of this player to see what happens. He still might not play all of next year. So this $1 million contract, depending on how the writing is, might expire after this 1 year. It might be only playing year. So who knows exactly how this contract's going to be written. The whole fact of him being restricted means that when this expires, they still retain everything to his rights and what he can, to sign him again. This is John Dorsey move. This is the guy that drafted him in 2007. Hunt did not lie to John. He lied to the Chiefs organization. John was already gone, so there's no hard feelings about what truly happened there in Cleveland or what didn't happen. Obviously there's a camera, but we don't know what happened prior to all that stuff. My biggest question here is Nick Chubb. Man, talk about a guy who got 9 starts, almost 1,000 yards, 996 yards, 8 touchdowns, average of 5.2 yard per carry. I mean, is it time to replace a young back?
Second-round pick on the year before. Again, this kind of seems like they're putting the cart before the horse a little bit, signing a running back. But sometimes, if you can make your roster better as a GM, you just have to do it. And there's no doubt in my mind, as good as Nick Chubb was, he's not as dynamic, and he can't do the things that Kareem Hunt can do. Kareem Hunt catches a lot better out of the backfield. Even though Chubb had some receptions, he's not the same receiver that Kareem Hunt is. Kareem Hunt's much more explosive. Hunt is more of a ball carrier, a bell cow that can sit there, carry the ball 20 times, take a pounding, but he's not necessarily going to go rip 70 yards off on any play. Kareem Hunt is that guy. So I totally understand the signing.
No, I do too.
Going back to the 1-year deal, and we don't know what Goodell's going to do, how funny is it going to be if he gets suspended for the entire year? They just take him out of it. So they sign him to the 1-year deal, and all that gets thrown out the window.
Sharif, what's going on, man? He says that Hunt is a liar and shouldn't be able to re-sign. I agree with you, but
I don't.
We're the ones that don't get to make that decision.
Again, I mean, it's one of those things that if you're really upset about it, we need to be talking more about why the Cleveland DA didn't press any charges. It was the same thing with Ray Rice out there in Atlantic City. There was clear video evidence of him just knocking his, I believe, fiance at the time and wife now just straight out, just as horrible as anything could be, and then the DA didn't press any charges. So we shouldn't be sitting there saying, why is the NFL not doing more? Why is anyone else not doing any more? We need to be saying, what's going on with the criminal justice system, that these things can happen, and the DAs are like, they play football, I'm not worried about it. So if you really want to talk punishment, that's where it needs to come from. We shouldn't be looking to Roger Goodell. I mean, look at the way he's muffed the Brady thing. Look at the way he's muffed the Zeke thing. It's clear that these guys do not need to be making any decisions like that, and it shouldn't be their job.
But it is their job.
They
Regardless.
have the power to, but they don't necessarily need to exercise that power.
They get to make all the final decisions right there in that one office, Roger Goodell's office. I'm looking at Sharif, what he's saying. He's trying to say he shouldn't get re-signed because if I go into my work and I kick over a girl in where I work, I won't have a job. And more
he didn't
likely,
do it at work. He didn't do it at work. I mean, can your job punish you for things that happen outside? I mean, I get it. They can sit there and separate themselves, but should it be their responsibility? Should your work have to go do an investigation on you on what you did this weekend? No. I mean, it shouldn't be their job. I get it's bad. It's a bad look. I don't blame the Kansas City Chiefs for getting rid of him. That's their choice.
Focused fully on the image of what's being portrayed. Because
and I understand that.
Everyone now is so tender-footed about every freaking any news story that comes out that there might have been a domestic violence or there might have been any kind of striking of a man and a woman that it's like wildfire. It spreads and they are literally dousing it before it burns them down. And I get why they're doing what they're doing. The thing is, when you look at Kareem Hunt, you look at the talent that he has, what he did for the Kansas City Chiefs for that short period of time. This guy has talent.
Talent outweighs the problems.
And that's
exactly.
And that's what's going to make the difference. Is like when everyone asked me multiple times on this show, they said, "Do I think Kareem Hunt's going to get signed?" And every time I said, "Absolutely, he will."
Oh, and I totally agree with you. I mean, the guy's one of the most talented running backs in the NFL. Of course, we all knew he was going to get another shot. Now, Steve, let's go to the comment section here. What everyone else wants to say. Steve says Cleveland's going to be deadly with him. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the best young 1-2 punch out of running backs, especially if they sign him long term. I told you I would have tried to get him on a 5-year deal. I think I talked about that, probably 10, 15 episodes ago. I would have tried to sign him for a long, really cheap deal. Maybe Kareem Hunt's a little wise to that too, and he said, "No, I only want the 1-year deal." But if they could have inked him up to a 3 to a 4 to a 5-year deal, and then you're talking about having Chubb on his rookie deal, you could have two of the cheapest and best running backs in the NFL for the next 4 to 5 years. I love the move for Cleveland. Even though it's going to take the ball out of Nick Chubb's hands, I think the guy who really suffers here is their other running back, whose name I can't think of. It's Duke Johnson. Yeah.
Jr.
As a scat back, I don't think he's going to get as many touches with Kareem Hunt there because Kareem Hunt can fill that role, and he can also run the ball with power when you need him to. He's much more versatile than Johnson is. I think Johnson now has become the de facto number 3. Also, Thomas says, "What's up? Good to see you, man. Good to see you representing us from Ohio out there." And Nathan, thank you again for hitting me up this morning and letting me know that this went down. I didn't believe you when you told me. I was like, "There's no way."
Sharif says that Chubb should demand a trade. He won't.
He's got no leverage. They got you for another 3-4 years, just depending on whether they want to take your option or not. He's got nowhere to go. So as bad as it is for Nick Chubb, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. These days, you need multiple running backs. And maybe they looked at it and they said, Duke Johnson is not a good enough number 2. He's not like Tariq Cohen out in Chicago where we can sit there and give him 15 touches a game and have him break the game wide open.
Hold on, what? Duke Johnson, come to Kansas City. I'd love to have you there. I don't know what he's smoking, but
I didn't say that me, but I'm saying they probably looked at it, and that was probably the conversation. I can't think of any other reason that they were like, let's go take this risk, take the media hit that after we sign Kareem Hunt, everyone's going to be talking about the Browns.
I don't think it's a Duke Johnson replacement. I fully think it's a Chubb replacement. You don't go running into next year with Chubb and Hunt as your number 1 and number 2. Literally, one of those guys is going to take a back seat. More than likely, it's going to be Chubb because Duke, he creates a whole different atmosphere when he's on that field, even over Hunt. I'm sorry, Duke is one of the best receiving running backs in this league, hands down. He's out there with James White. Those two are literally, in my opinion, number 1 and 2, even over Kamara, in my opinion. And the only reason that he doesn't get anything like he should is because he plays for the Cleveland Browns. So if that's what they're thinking, release him because there's plenty of other teams that would love to have that guy's talent.
And of course, you're not going to release him. You get 3 running backs typically on an NFL roster, sometimes 4. There's no reason for them to let him go. But obviously, they looked at the production and they said Kareem Hunt can do better than what we already have. Otherwise, you wouldn't take the risk. You wouldn't take the media hit. Right. You wouldn't want to be on shows like ours, sitting here talking crap and stirring the pot, unless there was something to gain out of it, right? Obviously, they still saw it as an upgrade. Maybe it is Chubb. Maybe they're sitting there saying Chubb isn't the guy. But like you said, he had almost 1,000 yards in 10 games. That's a pretty good rookie. That's a pretty good start.
No, it really is. Charo, what's going on, man? He says that Roger Goodell needs to go. He just signed a contract this last year.
Unfortunately, we missed our chance.
He is going to be there for a lot longer.
I think it was a 10-year deal. It was either 5 or 10 years for Goodell, and he was making like $50-some million a year. Yeah, so just slightly less than what Drew is making right now being on the show.
Absolutely, so. just a tad.
Also, Sharif says Ray Rice didn't get a chance. Well, I think, again, it comes down to your value. I think we saw Ray Rice slowing down in his career right when this stuff all broke for him. I mean, you could see the production was going down with the Ravens, and then you have this. Teams were looking at it like he's 30 years old or 29 at the time. His production is starting to wane. He's not the same guy. So, yeah, they didn't want to take the media hit. And let's not equate the two. I really don't like this comparison because Ray Rice, on camera, blatantly rocked his wife. Whereas Kareem Hunt got in a little cheap shot after the fact when the girl's already on the ground. And it's like I said, it's not like he free kicked her from soccer. He didn't wind up and just rip her with a right or anything like that. He didn't try to put the ball through the uprights. It was a tap. It really was. And I think we are blowing it a little bit out of proportion. Yes, it was a dick thing to do. It shows bad character, but you can grow from this kind of stuff. It's not like Ray Rice where you just absolutely knock somebody out. That, to me, 10 times worse than this Kareem Hunt thing.
Yep. Sharif all said, but then you look at Greg Hardy, who got $10 million with Dallas. You look at Reuben Foster, who got a second chance.
And Greg Hardy's the worst out of all of these.
But let's just talk about this real quick. Yeah, because Greg Hardy is a psychopath.
Exactly.
That guy doesn't deserve to have anything, and Dallas is just crazy enough to sign someone like that. But look at him. He's gone.
Well, exactly, though. They sat there and said, this guy can give us a pass rush. This is before they knew DeMarcus Lawrence was as good as he was. They're like, this guy can give us a pass rush. We know this is probably one of the worst human beings on earth, but his talent outweighed the problems, and they gave him a chance. And yes, Greg Hardy is a sociopath. When you throw your girlfriend on a pile of guns and say, pick which one you want me to kill you with, yeah, it's probably time to not have that guy in your football team. I'm not really sure why the Cowboys decided this is the only option we can go for, but they got a pass rusher for a dollar amount that worked for them. It just goes to show you how cutthroat the NFL is. These teams will do anything to win. Anything.
Thomas says he's coming to town. You coming to Nashville, man? I'd love to have a beer with you. Just hit us up.
You coming for the draft? You come for something else? I mean, it'll be fun. Draft weekend. Nashville's a great place to visit.
Oh, but you come, you have to buy us beer.
Exactly.
I don't know if you knew that.
Exactly.
That's the only rule.
Nathan also agrees. He says Chubb and Hunt will be a deadly duo. I'm right there with you. Jerry, good to see you. Always glad to see you.
You were behind on comments.
About 8,000 comments behind.
All right, just let you know.
Also, Sharif says Cleveland is trash and good luck with Kitchens. I think the Baltimore Raven fans coming out a little bit. Is that impacting your opinion of the signing? If Kareem Hunt went and signed somewhere in the AFC West, would you still have the same feelings about it, Sharif? I'm just asking. Or is it because he signed with Cleveland, who's now the legitimate threat, I think, in the AFC North between them and the Baltimore Ravens?
I don't know. He's also asking about Mixon in college. How do we feel about that?
Oh, I mean, I think the Mixon thing is definitely worse than Kareem Hunt. And I had some Bengal fans sitting there saying, I don't want him on the Bengals. It's like, you've already got a worse dude. I mean, he absolutely knocked a woman out in a subway going into the draft. That's why he fell that far in the draft. But again, the talent outweighed it. The Bengals sat there and looked at it and said, yeah, it's a second round. This guy's a pretty good running back. We should take him. I think Joe Mixon's still worse than Kareem Hunt when it comes to this kind of stuff. And we just forget about it because time has kind of numbed us to all that.
I think Sharif is just all about Kareem Hunt not being in the league because he said Hunt should not be in the league.
Well, let me ask you, Sharif, how's it feel to play in the division that has the most running backs with hits against people not playing football? Well, at least they didn't go to Baltimore. If you feel that strongly about it, I'm glad that they didn't sign with a team that you like, and that, to me, would be more annoying. If I really was that strongly opinionated about it, like if it was like Ray Rice or someone coming off of that, and you didn't need him, you didn't want him, and your team signed him then, to me, that's a lot worse.
Let's all remember, he's still on the exempt list. That does not involve any kind of suspension. Sharif said he should be out for at least a year. Man, he might be. He might come back from the list after, this year, and then right when he comes back and he can get reinstated, he has to do a 16-game I can't talk.
Suspension. Yeah.
Suspension, yeah. So it's very much a possibility. This guy might not be touching the field until, again, another year.
And Charo also says Chubb can go to Philly. I mean, I like the finagling, man. You're already working out trades and deals and maybe hoping they cut him. I just don't know if they're going to have the money for Nick Chubb if it's anything short of a trade, because if he gets cut after the season he had, I bet you he's going to get more than a $1 million deal on 1 year. I mean, Nick Chubb, I think he had a great start, and I was even a little down on him going into this year. I thought they should have kept Carlos Hyde. I mean, even though I didn't think Hyde was the best player, I thought they kind of booted him out to pasture too quick, but he definitely came in. The second half of the season was all Nick Chubb, and maybe it's because he was fresher, but he put up great numbers in the end of the year.
Yeah, no, he did. Richard said, what's going on, man? The 49ers are playoff bound next season.
The 49ers.
Man, that's...
What's going on, Rich? Good to see you, man. I don't know about that. I mean, the Seahawks are looking good. The Rams are looking good. I think it's a 2-year project still.
Yeah, I'd give them 2 years.
Maybe if they get healthy, the defense is healthy all the way through. Jerick McKinnon turns out to be every bit of the running back they thought he could be when they offered him that big contract. Maybe Jimmy G can lead him, but that's the biggest thing. Can he stay on the field?
More realistically, I think it has to be something like the Rams have a Super Bowl hangover, where they're had a terrible season right after the Super Bowl, which a lot of these teams do, minus the Patriots. I just don't see it, man. I mean, the Seahawks are still really good. As long as Russell Wilson's there, I think they're a playoff contender. And then we just saw what the Rams can do. They went all the way to the Super Bowl. 2 teams in front of you, that's pretty rough.
You're going to have a good season.
Happen.
And who knows, maybe the rest of the division falls apart. Maybe the AFC North, or the NFC North, I should say, falls apart. You only get the Bears that are good in that division. The South, it's still kind of teetering on the edge a little bit. The Saints are probably going to be good next year. The Falcons could fall off. Cam Newton could not play, and Tampa Bay's still in the dumpster. If you get some of these other teams that fall apart, maybe then we're talking about the 49ers. But like I said, man, I see them as being close to 8-8 next year if they keep everybody healthy. And if you have 2 good off seasons and smart moves out of your GM, John Lynch, then we'll be talking about the 49ers dynasty starting afterward. Because I think that offense, I mean, you saw what it did in Atlanta when they went to the Super Bowl. That year was absolutely fantastic. They made Matt Ryan look like the best quarterback in football. Then Jimmy G gets injured pretty much every year as soon as Shanahan moves out west. If he can get a healthy season or 2 with Jimmy G, get that offense rolling, get some weapons over there, 49ers are going to be dangerous. I just don't think it's overnight.
He won't be running the sideline anymore, I can tell you that right now. Matthew says he hopes his Vikings make smart moves this offseason. Me too, but they got a lot to make up for last year's smart move.
Yeah, and to be honest, this year was like the Super Bowl window year. I mean, the defense is getting more expensive. You got guys that are expiring. You're going to be losing them. We were talking about Everson Griffin moving on earlier today in some of our other posts. I don't know. I mean, I think the Vikings have to have a great and very tactical offseason. They need to bring in the right guys, and they need to bring them in at the right dollar value if we're talking about them contending next year. I still like them second best, if that makes you feel better, in the NFC North. I like the Bears a little bit better. They're younger. They seem like they're hungrier. And they seem like they're better coached, to be honest with you. But I like the Vikings ahead of the Packers and the Lions as well. Maybe they can have a great offseason and turn things around.
To me, it's not their defense. It's their offense. Can Cousins get matched up with these guys and do a full season of putting up numbers? Because it seemed like it started out well, and then it seemed to die off. Cousins, is he just average? Is he above average? Does he deserve elite money because he's getting it? Question is, how can you perform that guy into this role and make him the franchise quarterback that you guys are paying him to be? That's where my biggest question mark is. That defense, yeah, you're going to be losing some pieces, but I think it will be put together perfectly fine with that coaching staff. They will figure out how to fix those losing pieces and make that defense still as good as it could be.
Going back to Kareem Hunt really quick, Nathan says he doesn't see why the NFL would suspend somebody with no charges filed, and he says Chubb to Indy, he would take him. Well, I mean, just like everything else. Tom Brady, they never really technically caught him for Deflategate. He got suspended. Zeke Elliott, there was never really any concrete evidence there. He got suspended. I think they're just so afraid of any kind of backlash like they had with Ray Rice. You're going to get suspended. If anything happens, if there's any wind, the NFL is going to suspend you because they're afraid of looking soft against these guys. They're afraid, because if you remember when Ray Rice, this came down, they tried going with like a 1 or 2 game suspension right when it happened. And then everybody flipped out because they're like, this dude just, pretended like he was Floyd Mayweather and knocked his girlfriend out. You can't have that. That's why I see a suspension here.
Right, yeah, it's definitely going to be one. Thomas is asking, do we like the AAF? Yes or no? Is it a joke?
I like the AAF. I'm not going to say it's a joke. There was some entertaining times. It's not the same caliber as the NFL. Like I said before, at the worst of times, it looks like bad college football. At the best of times, it looks like good college football. And right now, this time of year, I'll take more football. Honestly, they've got some growing. Remember, these guys have not played together very long. I think the product at the end of the season, which is only 10 weeks, is going to look a lot better than what we see for the next couple weeks. They're going to improve. They're going to get to know each other, and I think the product's going to get even better. There were 2 games that were close, in my opinion, and then 2 games that were pretty well out of hand from early on. I think as the season goes on, hopefully these tighten up and we start seeing some better games.
All right, we got one more question about someone's team. Shannon wants to know, what about the Packers and their new coach? I don't think I'm sold.
Look, I get it.
Real quick, if you want to know more about what we felt about that coach hiring, the episode before this one, we talked about him. So, Shannon, if you want to have a chance to go back and look at it, we kind of went into more into detail, but we'll answer your question.
We did go in depth, and he studied, Matt LaFleur has studied with Kyle Shanahan. He's been with McVay. I almost said Timothy McVay, but that's not the right guy. With Sean McVay. Yeah, with Sean McVay. And he's been looked at as one of the next young guns to come up in the NFL. I get it. He didn't have a lot of success with the Titans, but he was working with a very limited team on offense, especially after Delaney Walker went out when Rashard Matthews quit on the team, and then Marcus Mariota being injured severely. If you listen to the media here, he had some nerve damage in his elbow. for almost the entire season. He got it in the first game. So he got a lot out of a little. Honestly, things could have looked a lot worse. I think in Green Bay, with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, I think Matt LaFleur's going to be absolutely fine. I will want to see Green Bay load up on some weapons, and then we're going to be talking about them being back on track sooner or later. Because when you've got a quarterback that good, look at Indianapolis. When Andrew Luck was out, they weren't that good. They were a 5-6 win team, and then he comes back and they won a playoff game. So I think Green Bay can do the exact same thing on quarterback alone.
Your season's all based on Aaron Rodgers, and if they can get weapons around him, regardless of who the coach is, in my opinion, it's all going to be based on what Aaron wants in that offense. So if you can get weapons like you should be getting through free agency and draft, that team should get better. I mean, when you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, you are going to always be close to being destined to make playoffs. So if they can figure it out, I think the Packers will be fine, but they got a tough road ahead of them next year. There's no doubt about it.
Nathan said he's got a question for me. Go ahead, buddy. Throw it in the comments. I'll try to get to it here. And Thomas also said the AAF, the XFL, is this minor league football? Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it needs to be looked at. It's minor league football. It should probably be more compared to college football instead of pro football because a lot of these guys don't have long to prepare with each other. A lot of these guys are going to be coming in and out of the league, I think, because they're going to get chances when they're successful in the NFL, and when they're very unsuccessful, you're going to see them wash out of these leagues too. So you're constantly going to have revolving rosters and everything. I think it needs to be looked at as minor league football, and if you look at it that way, set the expectations low, and you won't be disappointed. That's all I can say. I like some of the hits. I like the defense that was played. There was some good defense this week, and it's just fun. You never know when an interception's coming because these defenses and these quarterbacks with everyone not on the same page, there's almost some chaos to it, and I like that.
Thomas says he can't wait for March Madness. He says he hates football, and I think he loves basketball. Man, I for sure don't hate football, but I can't wait to talk about March Madness. As much as I'd love to talk about college football or basketball, there's just so many games, so much to talk about. But when it gets to that March Madness and we get through the bracket and stuff like that, trust me, we will be talking about it.
Absolutely. And Sharif says Floyd couldn't knock him out. I smell that next big title fight coming up. He's trying to rev up the comments. Sharif, good luck, man. I understand what you're saying, but then again, when I mentioned Mayweather before, we're talking about a 110-pound woman taking these punches. And I'm guessing you're probably at least a little bit bigger than that. So, again, violence against women we look at as 100% worse than violence against men. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but especially with a lot of these NFL guys, not everyone's created equally. Kareem Hunt, when you're talking about him like giving a little boot, it's not the same thing as Ray Rice just absolutely rocking his wife. It's not the same thing as Joe Mixon rocking a girl in a subway. So, again, I just don't think you can compare the two apples to apples.
Thomas says, thank you, Thomas, by the way. Says he loves the show, to keep it up. Trust me, we're coming up on 1 year, guys. Can you believe it? We've been here for almost 1 year. Just to think about it.
And we love talking with you guys. We appreciate each and every one of the comments. Eventually, we're going to move on from Kareem Hunt, but why don't we keep going? I told Nathan I would answer his question, and he says, since we're both AFC South, what do we think about everyone picking Texans in the Super Bowl? If you mean this past year, I didn't buy it. I mean, I knew that offensive line was going to be bad. They have been for years. I didn't really believe in Lamar Miller as a running back. And, I mean, they have a quarterback and they have one good wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. And the defense is just what it is. They have no secondary still. If you're talking about next year, I think they're dreaming. If you want to just go throw some money away in Vegas, go pick the Texans. I don't think they're there yet. They're not even close. And short of them having one of the best offseasons in NFL history, I don't think they're winning a Super Bowl next year. I like Deshaun Watson. I think he's got great talent, but this is, again, like some other teams, a multi-year rebuild, especially if Jadeveon Clowney leaves his team and they're down to only J.J. Watt, who's had injury issues. The Texans are in trouble.
Yeah, I don't see I'm not picking for the Super Bowl. I could see them going back to playoffs just because, you know, that division's so tough. An 8-8 team and a 9-7 team can win a division down there and get into the playoffs as a wild card. The AFC's kind of weak, unfortunately.
And Sharif says he's totally against domestic violence. I think everybody in here is. We agree with you on that, but I also believe there's different levels of domestic violence, and we can't just sit there and say somebody, you know, committed this crime and everybody needs to be punished the same. Just like with murder. There's first-degree murder. There's involuntary manslaughter. You have to look at the circumstances that go on with the crime, and you need to judge that accordingly. So I understand some of the hate that comes Kareem Hunt's way. Again, I don't think he's a high-character guy. I don't think he's a good person. But we also can't sit there and put him up there with guys like Ray Rice because it wasn't that bad.
Nathan, as far as if we've seen those posts, man, dude, everyone's reaching out there for who's going to be in the Super Bowl next year. I've read a few of them that said Texans. I have some that I've read that said the Titans are in the Super Bowl next year. So it's...
Let me tell you, that isn't going to happen.
It's out there. Let's talk about a player that got signed that, in my opinion, deserved to get signed, and that's Eric Reed. He signed a 3-year, a little over $22 million with Carolina Panthers. This guy absolutely deserved this contract. He never deserved to be cut because of his actions during the
old Colin Kaepernick era, whatever you want to call it, the protest and everything.
This guy is a great player. I'm glad to see him signed. I think this is something that we should be more talking about than an idiot like Hunt who likes to kick women when they're down.
Well, one thing is, again, the NFL cares about one thing, and that is making money. And when you do something like this protest that they had back in the day, that cost the NFL a lot of money. It cost the NFL a lot of viewers. Now, a lot of those guys, if you look at the statistics, came back this year. Whether it was just time being separated from the protest, whether it was that they felt like there was some sort of mending of fences and everybody came back together, the audience came back. But the NFL is concerned about one thing and one thing only at the end of the day, and that is making money. And when you cost them money, it doesn't surprise me that they don't want to give these guys second chances. Eric Reed took a couple weeks into the season to get signed, and they gave him a prove-it deal. They gave him a 1-year deal, and it was almost one of those things like, hey, man, you start stirring up trouble, we're going to black bag you again.
And to be honest, he was probably one of the best players on that defense.
He was, and he definitely brought a physicality to it. There was, some questions, like when he had the mix-up with the Eagles and everything, and Zach Ertz, how he's not necessarily, a good sportsman, whatever you want to call it. That's fine. You don't always need good sportsmen on your defense, right?
Well, to be honest with you, a lot of players in the NFL have that prima donna kind of attitude, so it wouldn't surprise me that he does too. It doesn't bother me. I want to see him out there mixing it up with players that he's going against. I want to see
that. Doesn't bother me either. That's football, right?
I want to see that.
It's a violent sport. There's going to be some hurt
I also want to
feelings.
see him reaching his hand down and helping the guy up after he hits him too, but I got no issue with him jawing his mouth around a little bit.
I think the deal was absolutely deserved. He played really well. Again, I think the only issue with Carolina is now that he's got the long-term deal, if he starts with any of the protesting and everything on the sidelines, it can impact both the way people view it and your viewership, which we were already talking about people not attending the stadium. The NFL does not need any more excuses for people to not go to the games. And that's the only thing with this deal that I want to talk about in the negative column. I think for the Panthers, if you're talking about purely on the field, he's one of the best safeties in the NFL. It's a good move by them by signing him.
He can be one of the best. He's just been not enough time in the practice. I mean, he's got to get back into it. It took him a couple weeks to get this 1-year contract. Now he's gonna have a full off season with this defense. He's gonna become one of the leaders in the locker room. This year coming up will be one of the years where he can prove to be one of the best. Because I think he was there ready to take that step, and then all this happened, and he definitely digressed a little bit because he wasn't on the field.
And I don't want to compare the two, but you're almost seeing a similar thing happen with Kareem Hunt. I don't want to compare the two things because obviously protesting something you believe in does not equate to beating a woman in any way. I'm not trying to say that, but the Panthers were rewarded because they got him on a cheap deal. They got good play out of him, and then they get the first bargaining rights when it comes to re-signing him. The Browns are going to be looking at the same thing. If Kareem Hunt turns his life around and all of a sudden straightens up, the Browns are going to have the first chance to re-sign him. They're going to have him as a free agent, or a restricted free agent, I should say, and they're going to get a cheap play for all of this year. So they're looking to do the exact same thing. It's all about risk versus reward, and with these guys that are very talented, teams sit there and look at the reward and say, I can deal with the risk of if he relapses.
Absolutely. All right, our last little thing for the NFL before we get to the AAF. Kyler, God, I can never say his name.
Kyler Murray
came out and tweets, I am fully committing my life and time to becoming an NFL quarterback. Did he get tired of all those questions, man? What you going to pick?
You
Football,
brought it on
baseball?
yourself. I mean look, I don't think it's necessarily the biggest story in the world that he's 100% committed to football. I mean, I get it. It closes the door on the Athletics, and they should probably be a little upset that they spent the 8th overall pick in the MLB draft to grab him. I'm sorry, the 9th pick to go grab him. But on the other hand, on the inverse, if I'm an NFL GM, you better believe when I'm interviewing, or a scout or whoever, and I'm interviewing him before we go and draft this kid, I'm throwing every question I can think of under the sun at him to figure out and make sure he's 100% committed. Because what happens if we have a Josh Rosen scenario? What happens if for the first 3 years or first 4 years he comes out of the gate and he struggles because the team isn't very good, and then he just decides, I want to go play baseball now? That is the biggest turnoff for me, at least with his draft pick. I don't mind the size as much. I don't mind anything else because I think the athleticism makes up for that. But when you look at it and you're like, this guy's heart might not be in it, that is when you really start getting into the questions, because when things go bad, those guys quit. And you can't do that in the NFL. Too many people are too good to have guys that'll quit on you.
Shreve says, where will Kyler go? Man,
That is the question of the draft, man.
Yeah.
Who likes him the most? I think the Giants are probably going to fall in love with Dwayne Haskins. I think they're going to go after him. I've heard the Broncos want to get in the mix on Dwayne Haskins as well. I think he's going to be the first guy to go, and then maybe we see a competition between Murray and Drew Lock after that.
Would the A's get a composition pick for him? No, actually they will not. They're going to – so with all that comes down, he got paid – so when he signed, he got a $1.5 million signing bonus, and on March 1st, he was supposed to get the rest of his $4.66 million in a signing bonus, but he won't get any of that. He'll forfeit that. He actually has to pay back $1.29 million, so he made roughly $200,000 just to sign a piece of paper, which is a great payday for him. But the A's are going to keep him on a restricted list, which will stop them from getting a pick for him because they're kind of going out there. They're holding out hope.
I mean, he is a very talented guy. I mean, I think he'd be a great second baseman. He'd be a great center fielder because he's as quick as he is. He's going to have great range. And on top of it, if you're the A's, I'm looking at it like, I get that compensation at the end. I can't say that word right now.
I'm glad you're joining me on this one.
They get that compensatory pick, and what are you going to do? It's after the first round. I think they're better off holding out for Kyler Murray because he is as good of a talent as he is. This kid probably would have gone first, second, third overall if he would have just declared for baseball and said, that's what I want to do with my time. So they're holding out hope, and like I said, the kid was obviously split if he made it this far into the process and hadn't made up his mind just yet. Now, Shannon also said he was horrible on the Dan Patrick show. Baker Mayfield was fighting with Colin Cowherd before he got drafted, if I remember right. I mean, he was sitting there, Colin was sitting there saying he was a bust. He went on there and, he did Baker Mayfield and just kind of like stirred the pot a little bit. I don't think that necessarily plays too much into an NFL draft expert's mind. I really don't think you should disqualify him for what their interview with a media member should look like. To me, I'm just looking at it like, is this kid going to dedicate himself to the game?
Yeah. Nathan says he needs to hire a quarterback coach. Man, I don't know why you think that. You literally talking about I think he leaves college with the highest quarterback ranking of all time. I think it was like 95.8 ranking. I mean, this guy threw for over 4,000 yards. I mean, why would he need a quarterback coach? He's throwing over a Oklahoma offensive line that's just as tall as it is in the NFL, so he's used to his height, his 5'9", 5'10". He's used to that. I mean,
if there was one thing I'd say he'd need, go get Russell Wilson's nutritionist, because look at the way he bulked up over time. That is exactly what I'd be trying to do if I'm Kyler Murray.
If you look at this guy, he's 185 pounds. He's not built like a string bean.
They say he's 185 pounds, Drew. He's probably like 168.
But he's built like a running back. Yes. This guy is not little. He's not like Teddy Bridgewater's knees, where it looks like if you hit him a little bit, his knees are going to buckle. This guy definitely needs a bulk up. There's no doubt about it, but I wouldn't sit there and say you put one lick on this guy and this guy's off the field.
And my thing is just don't sacrifice the speed. I think that's his greatest asset, is to be able to be athletic, because a lot of these teams that are going to draft you are not going to have good offensive lines for the first couple of years that you're there.
Matthew.
They're not going to be great at the top. So moving on from that, I'm sitting there looking at like, I have to make things happen with my feet, and to me, that is the biggest thing I'd focus on. Bulk up, but only do it in such a way that you keep your speed.
Yeah, there's no doubt. He's going to. He's going to bulk up. He's still a young kid. This guy is going to grow and develop into his body. He's going to make a lot more off of a signing bonus through the NFL in his first year than he made off of baseball. And he's going to get himself a nutrition. He's going to get himself a strength coach. The team that ever trades him probably going to assign a training coach to him to get this guy bulked up. There's no doubt about it. You can't do anything about his height, but he's already proven he can play just the way he is.
And Nathan also says he hopes he learns to run out of bounds. I agree, you don't want to take hits, but that's something you can teach. I mean, there was a lot of that concerns with Marcus Mariota, and that's one thing he doesn't do is take a ton of big hits. You can teach that to a guy. You can teach when to give up on a play. You can't necessarily teach that speed. You can't teach that arm talent. Whoever's getting him is getting, I get it, a little bit rawer of a guy when it comes to, with his size and everything. I'm not saying he's raw as in like he's not an experienced quarterback, because he did play at Oklahoma for just this 1 year with Baker Mayfield. They're getting a very talented guy that he has all of the intangibles, all the stuff you can't teach. You just need to teach him how to play, and all of a sudden he's going to be good. That's what you want to see out of a recruit.
Yep.
All right, Drew, let's talk AAF.
Let's do it.
Let's start by talking about how Birmingham absolutely murdered Memphis 26-0. To me, this was the nightmare scenario that every one of these games is going to look like this. It was going to be a shutout. It was going to be slow-paced. Neither team really necessarily dominating on any side of the ball except for defense, and very slow-paced. Trent Richardson had 2 rushing touchdowns in this, but he only put up 56 yards. He only did it 2 yards a carry at a time. What about this game do you think going forward the AAF is going to be able to do. Do you think we're going to see more of these games where one team just runs away with it?
I think at some point in time it will be, because it's such a short league. There's only so many teams that one team's gonna start meshing and develop a lot better than another team. They're gonna struggle keeping people there, keeping people healthy, and their depth is not as depth as like the NFL. When they lose players, they can replace them. Here, it might be a little bit harder to replace some of these quality players. So when the league starts to get drawn out and a team starts to struggle a little bit, it might just be that much harder to replace the people that you're losing.
I absolutely agree, man. And our other game, Arizona managed to win 38-22. It was a close game. It was close until halftime. The Hotshots, if you don't know, are Vegas' favorite to win it all. The fact that this game was closer might be a sign that, there is more of a parity. I get it, they ran away with it in the second half, but to me, at least you got one half of good football out of this where it was exciting. I think it's interesting. I think this this AAF, I should say, is going to be a case study for whether the XFL can work when it comes out next year. They're going to look at this and they're going to sit there and say, what rules do we need to put in place to keep teams as even as possible, to keep the games as exciting as possible? Because that's one thing about the NFL. Even the worst teams can show up and beat the best ones. I don't necessarily know that's going to happen in the AAF. Some of these teams did not look ready to perform. Some of them looked leaps and bounds, like Orlando and Arizona looked leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. And San Antonio was another one.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk some more AAF probably next week before the games start.
I got to give it another week, it seems like. It's like I want to like it. It seems like I'm going to like it. I read everyone's comments. Everyone's talking about, Shannon right here. I wasn't able to watch much of the AFL, but it seems like I'm going to like it. I'm kind of the same way, man. I'm on the cusp. I'm like, man, you almost had me dragged in. What can you guys do? What can these teams do to make me go, okay, I'm watching this week in and week out?
Well, I'm on the other side, man. I was actually excited for these games. I liked every minute of it. And like I said, there were times it was ugly, and I knew it was going to be bad. But honestly, I went in with the lowest expectations in the world. I thought it was going to be ugly football. I thought we were going to be watching this like I'd rather go watch a high school game locally than go watch this. But there were moments that surprised me. I mean, especially the San Antonio game. There were catches that were made. There were plays that were made by both offensive and defensive interceptions and everything that I was like, okay, I'll get on board with this. It's not the NFL, but it's a close second place, and I'm happy it's hanging around this time of the year. So we've got something not only to talk about, but something to watch.
And we're going right back to Hunt conversation. Anthony, thanks for joining us, man. He said Hunt is back. He can't believe it. And if we did that, we would be in jail. That's what the dollar sign does.
I'm not going to say jail. I'm not going to say jail. If they showed that, I mean,
assault?
Again,
assault's a night in jail, buddy.
You're going to sit there and say, she attacked me first. You only saw the part where I tapped her with my foot, and it wasn't that big a deal. I don't think okay, maybe a night in jail, but you're not going to jail anytime, period. And like I said before, it's not like the Joe Mixon, it's not like the Ray Rice thing where they just hauled off and punched him. If you did that, yes, you're going to jail and you're going away for a long time, and you probably should. But again, I think there's just different levels to these things. I don't think what Kareem Hunt did was as bad as a lot of what these other guys have gotten away with. Greg Hardy is another example. I haven't been putting him in the list, but he should be up there.
Let's just talk about that night. This night right here. The cops came. They were called. When they got there, they obviously recognized who Kareem Hunt was. He's a local boy. It sounds like they decided to kind of brush everything underneath the rug. Now, some of those cops got in trouble for this, maybe even lost their jobs. I never kept up with the story, but there was definitely investigation on that side of the ball. But I'm sure when they got there, and I'm sure everyone here in this show who's watching this has all had a drunk night and had a bunch of friends and something's gone haywire, and you're all sitting there trying to talk about what happened. You're all a little drunk. You're all having a little too much fun. And everyone's story is a little bit different.
There's 105 stories from 100 people. Yeah.
It's real rough. The only thing that matters is that videotape. And they saw the videotape. They saw him shoving his friend into the guy who fell and then later on kicked her. Even though it was a little kick, it does not matter. You never put your hands on a woman. And there it is. This guy is now from there to it is right now is everyone's opinion. I don't think he deserves to play in the NFL, but I knew he was going to sign because I think if the NFL is going to decide, hey, we don't allow people to do this in our league and we won't let them play, you make that statement and it's period. Or you do wishy-washy where it's like, well, it wasn't as bad as what Ray Rice did. So
I don't think that's it. It's a dangerous precedent to set because, like I said, you had the middle linebacker whose name I can't think of right now. He's playing for the Redskins right now. He just got cut from the 49ers. He's Reuben Foster. Yeah. Thank you. Reuben Foster, I mean, he was accused twice of it, and both of them were fake.
That's what I'm saying, but there's no videotape. It's already been shown that this guy did it. So that's what I'm getting at is if the NFL says this guy no longer plays in the NFL because he did it, then that's what they should stick with. If not, then this is what we're always going to have because they have not gone out and said that.
And the videotape is a big thing, but if a guy sits there and roughs a girl up and it's not on tape, I mean, you're just saying that's okay. I mean, that's something you get away with.
But it's something.
I'm not saying that you would say it.
It's now it's up to the police. They had to investigate it, and for that girl and her friends and family, unfortunately, it happened in Cleveland, which he's a native of, so it didn't backfire on him.
Welcome to Sports Around the Bar, Criminal Justice Edition. Anyway, guys, look, I get it. The videotape is evidence, but we need to remember that all the ones that we don't see are probably just as bad as this.
Absolutely.
But you can't sit there and just rush to judgment because we got 30 seconds of the clip, or 30 seconds of the entire event.
Right.
Like you said, you should never put your hands on a woman. I'm not excusing him for anything he's done, but we need to take everything with a grain of salt. It's not like he just absolutely mauled her. You don't know what she was doing. He claims she threw lamps at him. The Chiefs have said that's a lie, but again, it's their story or what they believe versus what he said and what he believes happened versus what she said. There's still a lot of gray area, and there are times, I agree with you, like Ray Rice, where you have it on camera where you're like, this is way too vicious, way too cut and dried. I just don't think Kareem Hunt is as cut and dried as a lot of these other things have been.
I just wish that the NFL would come out and say this is it, and then that's where we have issues with Roger Goodell and his leadership is he's back and forth on everything. I don't want to know what happened, but I want to know what the NFL is going to do when it happens again. If another video comes out like this, what's the plan? You put this kid on the exempt list, but now he's getting signed with another team. So,
well, here's another thing. I guarantee you, they're probably talking about that right now.
Oh, I know that.
The NFL, I'm sure they're talking about this. Like, is it 8 games? Is it 6? Is it the full season? Do we boot him forever? I mean, how many chances do they give other guys, though, is the question. Does the videotape by itself exclude his entire career because you caught, like I said, 30 seconds of this situation on camera? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and especially with Reuben Foster,
30
where
seconds is
he gets
enough
accused
time.
of it, and everybody, it was bad enough for the 49ers that they were like, we're going to cut him. We're going to cut a first-round pick.
When you talk about Reuben Foster and you're bringing up that scenario, that's because he couldn't keep himself away from a woman that them two don't get along. They're like fire and gasoline. They don't get along. And he kept going back, kept getting around her, allowing conversations between her. And then that's why they're like, dude, you can't straighten yourself out, regardless if it happened or not, because it's come out each time that it did not happen from her mouth. The point is, Reuben, you can't stay away from her.
And I'm not saying he didn't make bad decisions, but I don't think you can sit there and punish a 23-year-old kid for making bad decisions, especially like that. And
it
like
happens to everyone else. Why can't it?
Sports Around the Bar, Criminal Justice Edition. We'll go on to this later. Everybody, I don't think we're changing any minds. To be fair, I think everybody has their opinion about Kareem Hunt. I think I don't think there's anything I could say, anything Drew could say that's going to flip anybody. The fact of the matter is the Cleveland Browns now have him under contract, and it remains to be seen what the NFL is going to do about it. I can't wait to talk about it when they actually do come down with a ruling.
Yeah, it'll be exciting.
All right, Drew, we got some special thanks here. Why don't you go ahead?
Absolutely. Just, guys, remember, thank you all for the comments, the shares, the likes. It means the world to us to have you guys join us on our show. And just a special thanks to Shannon, Steve, Matthew, Sharif, Nathan, Jerry, Charo, Thomas, Richard, Anthony. All you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
And if you commented and we miss you, we appreciate that. You definitely added to the show. I'm sorry we didn't get to you, but we will get to you in the future. Like you said, all the likes, all the comments, all the shares, it absolutely helps us. We love it when you get involved. It's why we do what we do. So for Sports Around the Bar, I'm Jake, your bartender. This is Drew, and we will be back on Wednesday.
Yep. See ya.